Probably some about that Florida State LSU game ender we heard there. We already talked about Mizzou because they played Thursday. We talked about them on Friday before the holiday weekend. KU handles business and looks like a... What did you shake your head at for there, Beards?
It was the fact they scored how many points?
56!
Are we sure they didn't get, replaced?
KU
before
football
the
is
game?
back, Beards! Enjoy it. Get swept up. Don't tell me... I don't need your scouting report on Tennessee Tech. KU look like a competent football team, gosh dang it.
I'm still surprised.
Hey, look, that is actually fair. It being a surprise that they look like a competent football team is fair, but we've got to give them credit where it's due. KU comes out and looks like a Division I football team, which matters. That is a step in the right direction for that team. And then K-State totally shuts the door on South Dakota, wins in a shutout blowout. And I will be honest, in terms of what we're talking about today, I have all the love in the world for my dear Wildcats out there, but K-State did exactly what they were supposed to do. Not really a surprise. KU goes out there and does what they're supposed to do, and it's shocking because we have been, and shocking's not fair. Lance Leipold seems like he's got this team fully on the right track right now, but we've probably said that a few times over the last decade or so for KU football. So a compass that is just reading north, that is noteworthy for the Jayhawks. That is worth enjoying if you're a KU football fan. If you got that over-under at 2.5 or whatever, we're good now. Everybody should feel pretty good about this. I'm thrilled, as I have mentioned before. I'm sort of college rivalry agnostic, I suppose, in terms of this particular spot in our beautiful Midwest. I was born and raised, born in Wichita, moved up to the suburbs of Kansas City, been around them, or now in KC-Mo over the last several years. I'm a local son. But my parents went to Wichita State. I went to Mid-American Nazarene University. And there is a total of, one functioning existing football program there, and it's the NAIA one. So my college sports rivalries have all been kind of wonky since birth, apparently. I am genuinely, and I might be the only one in the greater Kansas City area, but I am genuinely happy. Maybe this makes me a pariah. I don't know. Genuinely happy when Mizzou, KU, and K-State all handle week 1 of the college football season and handle their business. I am genuinely lightened by that. I am enjoying it. Maybe that means I am a friend to none of you. Maybe if the enemy of my enemy is my friend, maybe the friend of my enemy is also my enemy. Maybe I lost the plot on there somewhere, but that feels good, and also doesn't mean we have to spend 4 hours talking about what's wrong with K-State. Nothing. The answer with all these teams right now is nothing. They did what they're supposed to do. Now, Mizzou K-State coming up this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to have to pick a side. I'm sure everyone listening is going to pick a side, although maybe KU fans are having a hard time sort of placing their emotional hedging on K-State versus Mizzou. That game will obviously be a blast, and we'll look ahead to that some over the rest of the week. And again, we'll talk about all things college football with Braden Gall when he joins us here at noon of ESPN Radio, 440 Podcast Network, and Athlon. So we'll talk to Braden at noon about a lot more college football stuff. At 1, the return of one of the Zone's beloved football season weekly guests, Field Yates of ESPN. You turn on your various ESPN networks for long enough, just pick up your remote and throw it at your TV. Don't do that. This is not legal advice, but don't break your own TV. If you were to throw your remote at your television, it would probably just land on a channel with Field Yates on it at some point or another. Of course, also the Fantasy Football Focus podcast, Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Excuse me for getting the F's switched up there. I was a long-time listener of that show back in the day when also Field was probably a younger man as well. We can't be that far apart. I know he's a little older, but one of the legit rising voices at the ESPN football side over this last decade or so. He's almost now been at ESPN. Looking forward to kicking things off with Field for this 2022 season. He'll join us Mondays throughout the season. But yesterday was Labor Day, and now we're here beginning our Monday, Tuesday on a short week, which means we are one workday closer to NFL football on Thursday, one day closer to Chiefs-Cardinals, and we'll talk all sorts of Chiefs stuff with Adam Teicher of ESPN at 11. And at some point today, Beards made this point clear in the formerly Almost Entirely Sports office earlier this morning. At some point, we're going to have a segment that I am just going to call Let Beards Talk About TV. And by segment, I mean a segment of a segment. I mean a minute of a moment.
That's enough for me.
I mean a breath of a second. It can't technically be a shot clock review because those don't come around until tomorrow. So you're going to have to figure out how to counter program against yourself there. But Beards has been watching both the new Game of Thrones show and the new Lord of the Rings show. Beards is all about that high fantasy life, and I'm not talking about football. And I want to know how it's been going because there have been some mixed reviews on both. I am excited for both of them, but have not watched either of them yet. And you know what, Beards? I'm not going to make the exact same joke I made about Renee's friends who may or may not have enjoyed Lord of the Rings so far. But I have heard, Renee hasn't watched it either. I have heard some mixed messaging on that. And I'm interested to get Beards' perfect moral compass. A lot of compass talk in this first segment of the show. But compasses come in threes. That's the conventional wisdom, right? That's what they always say. That's comedy comes in threes. Well, let's do compasses. Because I feel like here today on this Tuesday, we've mentioned our college football. We've mentioned our our high fantasy TV shows. But I feel like the dust has settled. Which might be a weird thing to say on the eve of the NFL season, or I guess the eve of the eve. But I feel like the dust is not just now ramping up. I feel like we are in the calm before the storm. Because we have nothing but transactions and hypothetical scenarios and plausibilities throughout an entire NFL offseason. We get all the way through the Super Bowl. Super Bowl happens. Everybody reacts to it for a week. We take a breath, then pivot to the draft. Okay, which of these college players might go in this spot or that spot? And then when they do, would they succeed in that circumstance? Could this receiver from this college program help this NFL program? And whoops, they took a defensive tackle. Okay, well, what if this quarterback goes into this situation? And what if Kenny Pickett? Nope. He's a Steeler, and he's third on the depth chart. It's all those hypotheticals. You get to the draft, the free agency's in there. Oh, man, the Chiefs signed Taylor Stallworth. What's he going to mean for the He's on the practice squad? He didn't make the cut? What? What happened? Training camp comes and goes, and we are just watching dudes work out. We're driving an hour some north to St. Joe. It's north, right? Feels like it's north from here. Weird. Look up what direction St. Joe is cardinally from here. Use your compass. Compass is coming for us.
I think it's north.
It's one of those things that I said confidently, and then if I got wrong, I feel like the text line, the Twitch chat, etc. would all be merciless to me. I feel like it's pretty much straight north from here. I was right.
Yeah, you're good.
Geography of my mini weak suits. Geography is near the top, or the north. Is that right? Geography is on the southern end of my personal rankings of things that I'm naturally good at. If you spun me around outside with the sun actively setting and said, go south, I would have to sit down and think for a minute. So don't come to me for my geography. Come to me for my sports takes. Or nonsense takes. We drive north for an hour and change, then we drive back south for an hour and change, and we say, all right, Patrick Mahomes looked good, the defensive line drills were fun, but what's this team going to be when they play the Arizona Cardinals in a month? Who knows? That's hard to gauge. We're not watching the Cardinals yet. These teams aren't finished. Their rosters haven't been set. The practice squads are still going to be some sort of ongoing concern. Well, then we get through all of that. Then you cut down the rosters. We spent weeks talking about the last 5 guys on the roster. Literally weeks. How many defensive linemen? How many edges? How many defensive tackles? How many wide receivers? Then they keep 6. They kept 5. Whoa, what? Tight end. Where's Blake Bell? IR. Who got his roster spot? We still don't know. Andy Reid said that they're putting Blake Bell on IR, but they have not made a corresponding move yet as we sit here right now. We've been in that transaction over and over and over again. We've been talking about all the minutia. I want Danny Shelton on the active roster. He's on the practice squad. Blah, I'm outraged. But I think over a nice 3-day Labor Day weekend, I think with preseason games finished, I think with no games actually starting still until Thursday, right now, this moment, I think in some ways is the quietest part of the football calendar. Not that it's not super busy. I did all my fantasy football drafts over the weekend. I did them all on Sunday night. I am set on my lineups. I'm waiting for news. I'm waiting to begin talking about Chiefs-Cardinals, but I feel like the dust is settled. Right now, teams are whatever they've been working towards becoming all year long. Teams aren't going to change between today and Sunday. We know who's suspended. We know somewhat who's hurt. That could impact some things a little bit. But for the most part, the teams that we have today are the teams that we're going to have on Sunday, and then we're finally going to get an actual football game to give us some new information about these teams. Woo! It's exciting, but also for the Chiefs, it's the most uncertain it has been since Patrick Mahomes got the starting job. That offseason was wild. Because it was, boy, he seems like he could be great. Week 17 the year before sure was incredible. All the reports out of practice and everything have been incredible. He's out there at training camp, throwing some picks, but looking pretty good. Well, what's it going to be? What it was a fire-breathing dragon MVP campaign from Patrick Mahomes. Cool. But then it was run it back, and it was rebuild the offensive line. This year is one of your top two weapons. 1A or 1B. I think I would make Tyreek Hill 1B to this offense, I suppose, with Travis Kelce being 1A, but splitting hairs. Your 1B option gets traded. Your defense gets a total overhaul. What is the identity of this team? Where do they actually fit in on all this? These huge storylines we've been milking for months kind of stop mattering on Thursday because new ones will begin. Or excuse me, on Sunday for the Chiefs, obviously. New ones will begin this weekend. They might amplify the offseason storylines. They might minimize them. If Sky Moore drops a pass and Marquez Valdez-Scantling runs the wrong route, then all of that will get amplified and we'll spend a week talking about, oh boy, this team misses Tyreek Hill. If they put up 40 and every receiver on the active roster catches a touchdown pass, which mathematically I think might be doable, maybe not. They only have 5 right now. Yeah, they could do that. Every receiver catches a touchdown pass, they score 40-some points. We will stop talking about Tyreek Hill unless it's talk about how much of a fake superstar he was, because actually he was all propped up by the Chiefs, and now he's catching passes from Tua, and he'll go 6 for 40 yards on his first Dolphins debut, and everyone will overreact, whatever it may be. But right now we're kind of set. And here's the conclusion for where we are right now. We spent 20 minutes convincing you that the dust has settled. If you believe me now believe me when I say this. The dust is settled. The Chiefs are set. And I feel great. I'm asking. Maybe I'm asking you for permission to feel great. Maybe I'm saying, hey, I feel great. Do you also feel great about where the Chiefs stand right now? Because I don't feel like I'm supposed to. I think that's the hang-up. There's been too much turnover, but that was always something, a part of the quote-unquote run-it-back campaign that I questioned at the time. And it worked out just fine. This is not like a dunking on, hey, this didn't work. But just so you know where I'm coming from. Just keeping the band together in the NFL is not always the right thing to do. Again, for the Chiefs in their particular quote-unquote run-it-back campaign, it worked out just fine. You can be proud of what that team accomplished, and the entire offensive line exploded. Believe happens. But I didn't think there was necessarily inherent value to keeping the band together, which conversely means that I do think there can be some value, maybe not inherently, but there's certainly nothing wrong with turning over your roster and trying to improve it year to year. Everybody's doing that all the time. The Chiefs were the outlier whenever they were saying, we're pretty much good, at least at our starting spots. I think the Chiefs' process at this point has been pretty good. I really do. I mean, yeah, losing Tyreek Hill's huge. Has anybody mentioned that in Kansas City recently? I feel like we've talked about it. Losing Tyreek Hill is a big deal. But I think they made smart investments around Patrick Mahomes to keep his cupboard full. Period. The offensive line is a unit. Andrew Wiley at right tackle, I think at this point, by just not having a reputation of being elite or being excellent at right tackle, he now becomes the guy that you go, boy, that offensive line's good, but what about Andrew Wiley? Andrew Wiley is fine. Andrew Wiley is a perfectly fine starting right tackle if he is the worst offensive lineman on your line. If he is your best offensive lineman, that says something about the other guys, but like this 1 through 5, swing tackles a concern? Sure. This 1 through 5 starting offensive line, I think, is in the top echelon of football. Very good left tackle. Maybe the best guard in football, certainly right there at the very top. One of the absolute best centers in football. Another young guard who has been tremendous but still has some room to grow. And Andrew Wiley, who I think at this point is probably more underrated because of his sort of humble origins in the NFL than anything else. More so than his actual play impacting that. Offensive line's in good shape. Tell you I think the wide receivers make sense. Smart. Evolution. Even if it was an unforced evolution. Maybe it was forced, maybe it wasn't. We'll see. And then defensively, yeah, this unit is totally different. But it's different in good ways. Why, if I am hesitant right now about my optimism for the Chiefs this year, if I am, I'm stretching my foot over, I want to tap the brake. But I haven't yet. Why not? Well, the defense is so different, I'm just nervous that I might. I'm looking at the defense, folks, and I like everything they did to make it better. Different isn't bad in this case. Look, is Brian Cook going to have a total mastery of Steve Spagnuolo's defense immediately? No. Sure, no, of course not. He just got here. Did Daniel Sorensen? No, not really, no. He might have known where he was supposed to be, might have been the best studier on the football field. I could have been the best studier in my college algebra class when I took it senior year because I thought I tested out of it and then ultimately didn't. I could have kept studying twice as hard as I did. I gave it the old college try. I was not going to fare well in that class. I no longer had the faculties at that point. I hadn't done math in 4 years, and Dan Sorensen hadn't been fast in a couple of years. It happens. Nothing wrong with that. Unless you're relying on it on the field in big games, and then suddenly something is wrong with that. Charvarius Ward, underrated. We haven't talked about losing him enough this offseason. There's a big impact there. Well, then the Chiefs trade up for, I think, a consensus, probably top 3 corner in this draft class. Nobody had Trent McDuffie outside of the first round. We're barely talking about him because the most boring thing you can do as a corner is be excellent without being targeted. Preseason training camp seems to be kind of the path for Trent McDuffie. He'll get tested. He'll get burnt at some point in his NFL career. Yes, I'm feeling bold today. But I like what they've done there. Linebackers, you continue to reload there, get younger. They tried it with Jermaine Carter. He comes and goes. Leo Chanel is now here. Is he pro-ready right now? I don't know, but I think Elijah Lee ends up on this active roster at some point from the practice squad. Game day activation, brought back up, whatever. This is a group of adults at linebacker. I'm happy to see them run out with the main young guys of Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. And then you can say, hey, Darius Harris can be there. Elijah Lee, currently on the practice squad, can be there. Leo Chanel will figure it out. Throughout the secondary, Justin Reed from Tyrann Mathieu is at least not an immediate downgrade. Is Justin Reed right now peak Tyrann Mathieu? Maybe not. Remains to be seen. But I would take 2022 Justin Reed over 2022 Tyrann Mathieu. I said that when they signed him. This is one place where Jason and I might have had a little disagreement. We usually have a pretty similar wave on our expectations on players. I heard Jason say Justin Reed needs to stay off Twitter. That's what I heard. That's not true. Sort of a callback to... Depends on how deep into last season's Chiefs Twitter lore you were, I suppose. But I think the secondary is in good hands. There will be growing pains all across this defense. The one unit I haven't explicitly mentioned at this point is the unit that changes the least, at least in terms of who they're relying on. And that includes a first-round pick in George Karlaftis, who I really am bought into at this point. Sponge George Motor Pants, if Furious George doesn't catch on. I think it probably will. I think it's a real thing. I just think that he's going to be infuriatingly frustrating to block over the course of a 60-minute NFL game. And he'll wear you down, and he'll get a couple of sacks, and he can be a very good complimentary edge rusher. I would love to have somebody who just eats world on the other side. I'm not willing to bet on that from Frank Clark. I'm not willing to overly invest to say, hey, George Karlaftis is going to save this defense single-handedly. I'm a little worried about Carlos Dunlap just on account of age. If he can be on the field and produce like he has over the entirety of his previous dozen years in the NFL, then I feel better about the unit as a whole. But all this to say is this is all to go around the horn, essentially, mixing my sports metaphors. I can't tell you where I'm really, really, really nervous about the Arizona Cardinals. I can't tell you where I think this team's going to falter. I think the edge rush concerns me still, but it's because you've got just a rookie, an unproven rookie in George Karlaftis. I like him. He's just new here. Frank Clark, to quote Patrick Mahomes, I will see it when I believe it. And then Carlos Dunlap, I was very high on at time of signing, talking about some Achilles issues and resting and all of that. I just started getting nervous, even though I like Carlos Dunlap quite a bit. All that to say, I'm kind of stretching my arms out to grab all the information as we've pulled all of these things together for what feels like an infinitely long offseason. 8 months almost, not quite, I guess, but more than 7 months since the Chiefs played a meaningful football game. Been a lot of dust that's been stirred up as the roster's been shuffled around. There's been all sorts of reconstruction, lots of changes. And now that we're here, and they just are the team that are in front of us, I think they're going to be really good again. I like the AFC West. I believe that there's real competition there for the first time in a while. But I think the Chiefs are the best team in the division. I think they're going to handle the Cardinals on Sunday. And I feel like I'm not supposed to feel that way based off how tumultuous the last 6 months have been. The dust has settled. I feel okay. I'm Joshua Brisco in the big chair today. Jason Anderson is out. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. Over the course of the rest of today's show, we'll talk more Chiefs with Adam Teicher at 11, college football with Braden Gall at noon, Field Yates will take us around the NFL, talk about the AFC West a little more, and of course the Chiefs looking ahead to the Cardinals at 1. That's the plan for the rest of the show. Don't go anywhere. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
The Chiefs are pork butts. There's a floor to pork butts. They're hard to screw up. You know they're going to be good on some level, but you need a good rub or even a good barbecue sauce after it's cooked to spice it up a little. Andy Reid is slow and steady, just like that 9-pound pork butt they've been smoking all night in the Arrowhead parking lot.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
During the break, Beard said that he was probably going to go unearth some old, almost entirely sports liners. What I realized after that first one played is that many of these are going to require context.
Who needs context?
The listener needs context. Because you can tell by the audio quality, the fan in the background, that those were ESPN Kansas City airwaves back there. You can tell by the music underneath. Those are not my original words. I was reading something from the internet. Probably a "Why Your Team Sucks" or something along those lines. And that was certainly before the Patrick Mahomes era. I stand by the content of the liner. The Chiefs were slow and steady like a pork butt. The pork butt opinions themselves were not my own. I want that to be clear. I'm more worried about getting canceled for the pork butt related opinions than the Chiefs related opinions. I've been right and wrong about the Chiefs many times over. I've gotten in and out of that successfully plenty of times. I don't know if I'm ready for a barbecue beef, for lack of a better word. I don't think I have that strong of an opinion on pork butts of my own. Whoever I was reading from there had a much stronger pork butt opinion. Beards, what do you think about butts? Beards? Your mic on? Your mic working, Beards?
They're pretty good.
Why don't you just mark that for Friday? Really confuse Jason, and we'll have a great cuts. Boy, I tell you what, Friday's cuts will be good because you're going to just get to pick stuff from the 4 hours that we're here where Jason's not here, and you're just going to be dropping confusion bombs just all over him and Mick. That might be another one.
I mean, Mick's not listening anyway.
Now or then or both.
Sure.
That's what I thought. I wonder if I'm alone on this one, by the way. If you want to, sound off on the show for yourself, there are a bunch of ways you can do it. We are live right now. We're working on some technical stuff on the backside of our video stream. So at some point today, we may end up pulling the plug while we get a little upgrade action happening there. But if you'd like to watch the show, you can do that on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We're in all of those places. The Twitch chat is always very lively, but you can go wherever is most convenient for you, which is the exact same stream in all those places. Of course, you can listen online at 810WHB.com, the 810 mobile app as well. But at those video streams and on the text line at 913-912-4810, you can share your thoughts on the show. Again, if you do it on one of the streams, you can chat with each other. That's always fun, I think. But it's easier to fire off text this way as well. 913-912-4810 is the way you can do that. And I am genuinely curious if I am alone on an island on this one, because this is like hit me in the shower today. This is one of those just all right, so we're going to start in earnest talking Chiefs-Cardinals today. Beginning of a game week. I did a pretty good job outside of just sort of snorting as much college football as possible because I have been going through football withdrawals. Other than the college football, I did a pretty good job of kind of taking a little weekend chunk to kind of recalibrate and to rest up and prepare for what's going to be an incredible football season. I wasn't thinking about the Chiefs 72 hours straight over the weekend, which is often something I will do. So last night and this morning, I was thinking about what the direction of where we're going to start this sort of game week in earnest. We were going to start, and I was kind of, I don't know, man. I feel like we've been looking for reasons to knock the Chiefs off for 6 months, which might go back into our larger conversation about, why do people now suddenly think that Patrick Mahomes is a one-read street ball quarterback or whatever? Why does Jack Del Rio, an anonymous defensive play caller, think that? Maybe this is all just the same stuff. You get bored of greatness, but for the Patriots over their dynastic decade and change, although, again, they went 9 or 10 years without winning a Super Bowl in the middle of their dynasty, which people never think about because, in fairness, they were in the Super Bowl plenty over that period of time, so that, still dynastic, just not always winning. I think you could probably get bored of seeing the same teams win over and over and over again. That's a problem that college football is going to have again this year. It's going to have for a while with the playoff expanding. Sure, it's fun. We'll talk to Braden Gall about that at noon. But with the Patriots, I think it was twofold. They were so good for so long, and who are you going to pick to knock off the Patriots in the AFC East? Once ever. You got a couple passes of Mark Sanchez. You got
That was it.
Well, and then you also got the Bills at some point. The Dolphins. You got, like 7 years of Ryan Tannehill? That was it, though. Like, that was it. You got a couple years of Mark Sanchez.
Tyrod Taylor getting replaced by Nathan Peterman and then throwing 5 interceptions and then saying, well, that experiment failed.
Who was the best Bills quarterback of the last decade? Will you look that up for me, Beards? Will you just sort through who's the Bills' best quarterback while Tom Brady was in New England? You can make that your year-to-year cutoff. Pre-Josh Allen, post-Jim Kelly. Who's the Bills' best quarterback? I'm sure there's a hilarious name in there somewhere. But, like, that was it. There was not an intellectually honest argument for knocking off the Patriots at any point over 20 years in the AFC East. Even when Tom Brady's knee exploded and Matt Castle was like, "Yeah, I'm here. I'll give it a go, I guess." Whoop! AFC East. What? How? What? How? Why? How did you? Tom Brady's gone. Yeah, because they're the bleeping Patriots. It's been the calling card for 20 years of divisional dominance. And I do think a legitimate difference for the Chiefs this year as opposed to years past is, one, teams are bored, lots of national fans or analysts are bored of them because picking the same team to win again just isn't very sexy most of the time. They don't call them lock of the week specials. Like, their upset specials are your locks of the week. Your locks of the week, you just go, yeah, I think that this team's going to win because they're better than the other team. And you don't really think about it too hard. For your upset special, hey, I'm going to do something wacky and fun. I think the Jags are going to win the AFC South. Cool. All right. Neat. What's going to happen? Well, the Titans are going to win, but I want the Jags to. All right, cool. I do think there is an intellectually honest argument for the Chiefs losing this division this year. Again, I have picked the Chiefs at every turn. I like over 10.5 regular season wins. I like your Patrick Mahomes MVP odds. I think this defense, while it will have some bumps in the road at some point, I think by the end of the year is going to look really good in addition to being young and fast, which they already are now. I think I am buying most of Russell Wilson, but maybe selling a little bit of the rest of the Broncos as being not quite the fully complete blue chip roster they've got the reputation of being. I think the Chargers are really good. We just haven't seen them do it successfully yet. I kind of buy that they will at least be a playoff team again. I love what the Raiders have for their offensive weapons. I think they're Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller is bleeping madness. If that was your 1, 2, 3 in fantasy last year, you would have been. I mean, Hunter Renfrow maybe not your 2, but you know what I mean. 3 pass catchers in a real offense. I mean, that is exceptional. But I don't think that offensive line or that defense is very good. So I don't know. I really don't. I think that this is the Chiefs and the Chargers in that order, and then a decent little drop-off. And then it's the Broncos and the Raiders in that order. But if you told me the Chiefs were going to go, what? 3-3 in the division? They just split with everybody? I'd be a little surprised because that's not what they do, but I wouldn't be beside myself. I wouldn't be despondent. I wouldn't call you mean names and say you were a lunatic sent from the future. It could happen. And I think that is the combination of, what, you want me to pick this team to win another division title in a row? Okay. The combination of that and there being legitimate options outside of the Chiefs, I think is probably working in tandem for some of the Chief apathy that maybe you've seen in some spaces, because not every team in this division is the mid-2000s Buffalo Bills. Beards, can I please get what information you have brought to the table?
So I have found an article here from Insider.com. There were 18 starting quarterbacks. Tom Brady's record was 32-3. Do you want me to list off all 18 quarterbacks?
Are these just for the Bills? Is the whole division?
Just for the Bills.
Okay, sorry.
I've got the whole list for the AFC East, but I've got the Bills one pulled up here.
This is one more time the list of Bills quarterbacks who Tom Brady played against.
that were for the starting quarterbacks for the Bills while he was there. Yeah.
Okay. And what was Brady's record again?
32-3.
Yeah, I would love the list more than anything. 32-3. Here's what 32-3 sounds like.
Up first, we've got Rob Johnson,
Cool.
Alex Van Pelt,
Wow.
Drew Bledsoe.
Sure, you have your Drew Bledsoe.
J.P. Lossman.
Uh-huh.
Kelly
Remember him well.
Holcomb, Trent Edwards, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brian Braum,
Yeah.
E.J. Manuel,
Yep.
Thad Lewis,
Sure.
Jeff Toole,
Uh-huh.
Kyle Orton,
I forgot about the Kyle Orton
Tyrod
Buffalo Bills
Taylor.
years. Of course.
Matt Castle, Nathan Peterman,
Sorry, what?
Derek Anderson, Matt Barkley, Josh Allen.
I'm going to need you to go back to everything after Matt Castle.
Okay.
Because, folks, if you listening right now just went, well, I don't remember Matt Castle starting a game for the Buffalo Bills.
Tyrod Taylor was the wide receiver?
That doesn't seem likely. Maybe it's been a snap out there? What happened? What do you mean?
This is from the Matt Castle section.
Okay.
He took the first snap of the team's 2015 season opener as starter Tyrod Taylor lined up at wide receiver.
Okay. I feel a little less crazy now. Because what I just did was I just pulled up Matt Castle's football reference page and saw that he was 1-0 as a starter for the Buffalo Bills in his only appearance for the Buffalo Bills, where he threw 0 passes, which means zeros all the way through the column. So Matt Castle took the first snap of the season for the Bills while Tyrod Taylor was out there like Wildcat before Tyrod Taylor took the team back. I did not expect to hear Matt Castle's name come up there because I do not remember that one singular snap of Matt Castle's career.
Anyway, after him, it was Nathan Peterman, Derek Anderson, Matt Barkley, and then Josh Allen.
All of the names before Josh Allen on that list are how you end up being a dynasty in a division that cannot pry your hands off of the divisional title. Trophy, plaque, whatever. You saw how Bill Belichick was holding the AFC Championship trophy. When was that, 2018? Yeah, of course it was 20. It was